the shadows of the night, she shatters the chains of the past, unlocking a future brimming with possibilities. Sexy and intelligent, a visionary foresight consultant for high-ranking government officials, Hollywood elites, and global business magnates, whose services are guarded with the utmost secrecy, treasured like a prized jewel. She loves your darkness and transforms it into unstoppable strength. She sees both danger and hope in the future. She is amazing. She is Robyn.
The Amazing Robyn. Thanks for coming on. I read your bio. I find you very intriguing. You've been featured on National Geographic, CNN, BBC, Discovery Channel, as well as other news specials in France, Timeline Films in UK. I stole that from your bio. So this sounds super interesting to me. All right. You're a foresight consultant for high-level government officials. What does that mean?
It means I have foresight in the future. It means that I have a seer capability.
You've done viewings, I get, what do you call them? Viewings?
You can, yeah. Everybody has like their own little lingos and stuff like that, you know. It's kind of like if you've ever watched Game of Thrones. Have you ever seen that?
I love Game of Thrones. Yep. Top 10.
Yeah. In The Raven, the boy, when he becomes the Raven, how he can kind of see from the past, current, and future. It's like that, but I have to hyper focus on something that I have permission to hyper focus on.
So we had a guy on the show who was a remote viewer. Are you familiar with that?
It's kind of similar. Yeah, I just have a different focus, but it's very similar. Yes.
Okay. He would kind of sketch certain things he sees. He would be given a like a number and I guess maybe a location, and he'd be able to figure things out. He was supposed to come back on to do a thing where he picks from 6 envelopes and says, "Oh, well, that's in this image is in this envelope," but we haven't been able to get in touch with him again. He ghosted us. That's okay. That's fine. You've done viewings for royal families, government officials, Hollywood elites, global business leaders, and I'm sure I can't convince you to name anyone. That's probably a big no-no, right? That's client.
No, but I can talk about certain projects, just not specific brands, names of people.
Okay, so let's hear about an interesting project you've been on. Something you found interesting, at least.
Well, do you remember the Warren Jeff story?
Or refresh my memory.
Warren Jeff was the fundamentalist Mormon who was on the most wanted for the FBI.
Okay.
And he was on the run and he built a temple out in Texas and was found with a bunch of children, things like that. But they started a whole fundamentalist group. I mean, lots of members in the church. They're the ones that had like the 12 wives, things like that, right? All wore the same color dresses, same hairstyle, all of that. When he went to prison, interesting enough, a lot of people didn't know, they owned like 2 counties, Hillsdale and Colorado City. And so all of their property was in a trust by this church, right? And they had like so many properties that were like 12,000 square feet. They couldn't get insurance, they couldn't get titles. The Department of Justice stepped in, seized everything, and this community was stuck, like left hanging. So the Department of Justice actually, and here's what's interesting is there was a lot of weird energy there, a lot of weird phenomenon happening, a lot of dark shit going on. And a lot of people didn't want to touch it. They didn't want to go down there. They could feel it. And none of the people would speak to the Department of Justice. So they couldn't get insurance companies. They couldn't get investors. They couldn't do anything for the development down there. Gas stations, all of that. So the Department of Justice actually hired me to come in and to clean the energy of that community and to work with some of the people in that community that were trying to rebuild. And I actually helped one of the first women become mayor down there and kind of rebuild the community. And that was a few years back. So I actually got to go down there this year, just like 2 months ago, and see the changes. And it was absolutely incredible. But a lot of people didn't know what was really going on behind the scenes of this fundamentalist group and the weird shit that was going on, especially the torment that the men were going through and there was a lot of darkness happening.
Like what kind of weird shit are we speaking?
Like, for instance, Warren Jeff was supposedly their prophet, and they were terrified of him. They were no longer allowed to pray to God. They had to pray to him, and they would see him do weird contortions with his body and float and levitate during sermons.
Do you think he did? Did he? Do you think he did, or do you think he convinced them he did?
Well, there was a lot of eyewitnesses that saw him for sure do weird contortions with his body that were unnatural. There were several people that I interviewed and spoke to that saw him do weird levitations and stuff while during his sermons. This was in face to face, in their meeting houses and things like that. So they were convinced that even if they believed that something was wrong or that he wasn't a prophet of God, that somehow he would know that they were having those thoughts. So they couldn't talk to their spouses, they couldn't talk to anybody, they couldn't even have the thoughts. They were just terrified, and that's why they won't speak to people outsiders. It's just a very
Uh,
interesting little group.
he was not only a lunatic, but he actually had some kind of ability to convince people
Yeah.
what he wanted to convince them of. That's wild.
And then he started doing very sick things with very young girls. And
That's usually the story with those guys. So how did you know? Like, was there a pivotal moment or experience that told you you could see things, or showed you could see things, you could heal people?
yes. Well, when I was a kid, I assumed everybody was kind of like that. Like, I remember like my earliest memory in elementary, I was sitting in the grass and I saw the squirrel in this tree and I thought, oh, there's something wrong with his vision. He's gonna fall. And then he fell. And then I kind of just started to see things like that. But then as I got a little bit older, I would talk about events that I was dreaming about. And then my parents would say, well, that actually happened today. And then as I got a little bit older, I started to see those events on the news. When it became very apparent to me, I was about 21 years old. I had a vision, like a dream vision, where there was a flash flood in Texas. And in the flash flood, I just watched it happen so fast, and all the water just came right over all these vehicles. It was just too quick. But I was a young single mom at the time. And in that vision, I zoomed in and I saw that there were three kids in the backseat of this white car. And it really bothered me. And then 3 days later, I saw it on the news and I saw that white car and I knew it was true. So that's when I knew that there was something a lot more to this. I actually ended up having it out with God that day. We're like, why do you keep showing me shit that I can't do anything about?
I assume that contributed to the reason why you want to help people now with you got into that field, I
Well,
guess.
yeah, I mean, for years I worked with like governments and private organizations preparing for catastrophic events. From I became a sniper, I became, firearms and survival instructor, emergency medicine, anything like that, herbology. I became all of those things. I'm a holistic doctor. But then there's a lot of doom and gloom in that. Like everybody's like, oh shit, what's going to happen? Tell us. And it's a very intense kind of energy. You talk about going to a seminar. I walk in the room and it's like everybody's like, it's like a buzzkill. So I started to go more onto the good side, the healing side of things, the miracles. And that's when I became a holistic doctor and really trained my gifts and abilities in a different way. So now I have the ability where I can see why like somebody has cancer or who's committing fraud in their company, how we can shift it, how we can amplify things. I can shift a whole entire department energetically. So there's a lot of beautiful magic that can be done.
You got any kind of method to help you keep sharp? Yoga, something? How do you keep
Oh,
your mind?
staying away from drama and negativity is one of the biggest things. But I take care of myself. I work out 5 days a week. I'm super strong. I weight train. I eat healthy. I just taking care of myself is a priority. Now, if I don't take care of myself, let's say I'm out drinking and the next day I'm hungover. I'm not very gifted that day. So I
Right.
think that's like that with anybody. I don't think
Yeah.
anything special about me. I think anybody can get there. But I will say this, once you've made that type of connection to receive revelation and to receive those kinds of downloads, and you've established that, it's there all the time. I don't have to go into a deep meditation. I can just close my eyes, ask a question, the answer comes. And I train people how to do that. Anybody can do that. It's just about knowing how to get there in the fastest way possible.
Have you ever tried to see your own future? Does it work that way? Can you do that?
Oh, I wish. I wish. And I'll give you a perfect example. 3 years ago, my father was murdered and he was missing for about 2.5 months. Search and rescue was looking for him up in the national park. And my gifts didn't work. They were off and on, off and on. I couldn't even tell if my dad was alive or not.
Wow.
I would get like some answers, and then the other answers would be conflicting. They just go back and forth. There's reasons why, and it's because we're biased with ourselves, but also knowing things about your own future removes your free will and agency. So it's manipulation. So
Okay.
typically, people who have gifts aren't really capable of using them for themselves unless it comes to healing. I can heal myself all the time, and I do. But I do get warnings, like premonitions, like especially with my children. I'll get a premonition like, hey, this you need to do this and this is going to happen. And I'll do something spiritually or energetically to protect them. And then that thing will happen. And it's like a miracle happened. But I don't get to see, you know, like my husband cheated. I'm in the middle of a divorce. It's going to be final this week.
Been there?
But, he cheated all the time. I could predict earthquakes, but I couldn't predict him cheating. I would find out intuitively after the fact. Like I would, have a dream or a vision and I'd be like, hey, who's Elizabeth, or something like
Wow.
that. But there was nothing I could do preventatively.
Wow. So you don't know when it's happening, but if you came home, you couldn't be like you wouldn't know, be like the normal person. Where were you? You couldn't be like, I know where you were. That doesn't work.
I would know specific things. I would know, hey, you were with a woman, or what you told me was not true. And then what I would do is look for confirmation. And I could always get confirmation by the response, right? Everybody can.
Hmm.
And so, yeah, I might not know all the little details. The details tend to come a little bit later once I inquire, but I need confirmation of multiple things. Same with prophetic things. If it's in the future, like if I get a vision, I need three confirmations of something else to know that it's real. I don't just like blurt out a bunch of woo woo bullshit to people. I have a proven track record, I have a system, and I need confirmation of multiple things to know that it's legit.
I mean, that makes sense. That makes a lot of sense,
Yeah.
actually.
And I think everybody should do it that way. There's always
Yeah.
a bunch of bullshit psychics out here just saying whatever for, to sound cool, right? And it's not verifiable.
So, like, what kind of lunatic do you have to be to cheat on someone who can know that you're cheating? What is that?
I
He knows you.
honestly,
I mean, I assume he knows
I
about your abilities, right?
Yeah, I could think about that all the time. I've always thought that he just deep down just really didn't believe it, never really trusted it, even though he had seen, so many things over and over again. But I also trained him somewhat too, and I think sometimes he thought he could block his energy in some ways. But yeah, I don't know. I have always thought about that, and people ask me about that too. Like, what the fuck was he thinking?
Wow, that's some people are just dumb. I don't know. I don't know. Some people just think
Yeah,
they can get away with anything, I guess, or maybe they want to get caught. I learned how to tell when my ex was lying, you know, and I doubted myself a lot of times because I could only, like you said, I could only confirm sometimes, and I doubted myself
right.
all the time. And it turns out like just about everything I thought was right, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But
I know, and that's tough. And that's probably the worst part too, is when they make you feel like you're crazy or that you are projecting or, things like that. And that's why I was always pretty careful about that, because I know that we can be biased with ourselves, right? We find those connections and, go down a wormhole, right? But
Mm,
yeah, and that I think that's the worst is when you start to really question yourself more than anything. It's like, how
hmm
dare you like make me really start to think that I had an issue here or that I was, deceiving myself when you were deceiving me.
Yep, exactly.
It's
And
the
other people
worst.
think you're crazy. Well, nah, they're not doing that. Okay,
Yeah, yeah,
whatever.
it's tough. And it's honestly I haven't shared that with anybody, just FYI. I almost thought it would be embarrassing because of the work that I do.
Mhm.
Like here are high-end people, paying me a lot of money to consult and to prepare for very, very important things. And here I am dealing with something like that in my own personal life in a 20-year marriage, having to uncover secret lives that my husband had. And so I really kept that to myself. But now I'm in a place where I appreciate it. Like I appreciate the trial. I appreciate have to, I'm not exempt, right?
Mhm.
And I can't use my gifts in that way for myself because I need to have the same experiences as everybody else.
Yeah. Yeah, it seems like if you're too close to the situation, you can't touch on that. Conflict of interest
Yeah.
in the spiritual universe. So I'm always wondering, I'm sure everyone's always wondering. Uh I don't know if you've looked into this, if you could see it, if you've had a vision or something. Everything's crazy right now. The world's so volatile. Do
Yes.
you see anything catastrophic as far as the world, worldwide, going to
Yes.
happen anytime soon? Because things are nuts. Things are nuts.
There are some things that are pretty consistent that I see, and I'm always looking to see if the timelines are changing. And I want to talk about that, how timelines change.
Yeah, let's go into that.
So, yeah, so let me give you an example.
Mhm.
There's an event that's going to take place. The timeline has changed. It was already supposed to happen. And the way that I see things in the future, I see it in dominoes. So I see this event, and then this event, and so on. Okay. It's like a buildup. And how timelines can change is that if someone has influence over a lot of people, like a position of power, right? Like a royal family, an administration, a presidency. If people in those positions decide to pull a trigger or make a decision that will manipulate free will and choice, that's when you see catastrophic events. That's also what will change timelines. They'll either speed it up or slow it down. So, for instance, one of the things I see all the time that's one of the major dominoes is there will be a catastrophic earthquake in Utah. And when that happens, that's when shit gets real. That's when, like, there's a bunch of other dominoes. Now, I'm happy to go into some details about that, but I will say this that earthquake is tied to a decision being made by governments because there's a virus that's attached to that. And that virus is the real deal. It's like COVID was practice. Um, and what's actually coming is the real deal. And there'll be the beginning stages of a virus, and then that earthquake will happen. Because it's almost that's where people never, all the years I worked for the government, they never would take into account for divine intervention. So they could never prepare for everything because of things like this. Okay, so that earthquake creates such a divide where it actually keeps different viruses from coming. But when that earthquake happens, foreign troops come aid the United States. And it's like a
Really?
Trojan horse. Yeah. And they bring a different virus. So you have a virus coming from the East Coast and a virus coming from the West Coast.
So that's never happened before. I don't think foreign troops has ever been on United States
No,
mainland. Yeah.
no. And one of the things that I've always, every time I've seen this earthquake in a lot of different angles. I can tell that it's in fall. I can tell that it's first thing in the morning. It's a sunny morning, on a Monday or a Wednesday. That's all I can tell. And, but I can tell that how bad it is, that it's nothing like an earthquake we've never seen. And then I can tell the triggering events that take place after. But I also can tell that whoever's president is telling the American people how this is a good thing, that these
Earthquake?
foreign troops,
Oh,
yeah,
foreign troops.
that these foreign troops are coming to aid to the United States.
I'd be
And
surprised to see the president do that.
I don't see Trump doing that. It's something I don't talk about very often either, but I also am having trouble seeing the election.
But it's not inevitable, the earthquake. The timeline could change.
It could if people decided to actually, do the right thing. I just don't see that taking
Yeah,
place.
good luck.
Yeah, because I feel like we're past a point of no return in the sense of what we've done here is unsustainable. People
Mhm.
would really have to rise, but that's part of what's going to happen here. It like the earth starts to work with us in a way. So certain of these events take place. Yes, it's chaotic. It starts happening all around the world, but you're talking about uniting the human race again, creating a world that people have always dreamed of. People have called it a lot of different things from the Great Reset to, the Second Coming to, all of these things, right? But
Mhm.
they just don't see how logically it's going to happen. So I'm just saying that that's one event. That one event is always a huge cue. Now, there's a bunch of events that take place a little bit before and a little bit after, and it just keeps going and going. But here's the cool thing. If there's a catastrophic earthquake, then that means there's an equal side of something incredible.
Okay, so you've got to have good along with the bad. Is that what you're saying?
Of course. If
Okay,
there's a
balance it
10
out.
point earthquake, then there's going to be a 10-point blessing, a 10-point miracle, 10-point awakening.
Okay.
Maybe like things like, I mean, I've seen all kinds of things in the future, but people start to have supernatural abilities all of a sudden. People, I mean, there's a lot of things that are going to take place. And so big that a lot of times I don't even talk about it in detail. I just give the cues of what to look for.
I'm not religious at all, honestly. But I do believe that everybody's connected. You know, all energy is connected, everything's connected. And what you might do, what you do might have an effect on somebody else you have no idea of. You don't know who they are, whatever. Just like your domino effect, When I hear someone reference something as religion, I don't dismiss it only because I believe it could happen. I just don't believe maybe it was God or something. Am I wrong?
Sure.
Am I right? I have no idea. But that's
And it's really
just
about and that's really about the lingo, right? The definition. Like
yeah.
divine intervention, like what does that really mean
Hmm.
to me or to someone else, right? But those lingos and those definitions are very, very different for everybody, aren't they?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And it doesn't have to be religious at all. Most religion, all religion is pretty false, to be honest. So, um,
I
I was a gospel teacher for like 15 years, and
read that. Yes.
yeah, so I have a very interesting background. I've studied religion. I was a gospel teacher, but I've had some supernatural experiences that have brought me to my knees when it came to my religious beliefs of
Really.
knowing how false they were. Yeah.
I hear that a lot, actually. Very religious people, something changes their minds. Not that they're not religious, they're just a different belief now. Something changed their minds. Yeah.
Yeah. The same thing like with people who have like near death experiences and stuff too. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. Uh, can you expand on that or you want to keep that to yourself?
Sure.
All
No,
right.
whatever. I'm an open book. You could
All
ask me
right, let's
anything.
go. I'll keep prying then. Poking PRodcast is what it's called. I'll keep poking and prodding.
Yeah. I used to be addicted to revelation. And that's part of once I was trying to develop my spiritual antenna, right? Like how I get downloads, how I connect, how I receive, how I get visions, everything. I was addicted to it. So I would fast all the time. I'd fast and I'd pray and I'd go camping by myself and go to the tallest mountain and be up there alone and having it out. And I'd come back with really big information. And it's kind of like the story of Moses getting the Ten Commandments, but one day I had a face-to-face encounter with who I was praying to, who what people would call God or Heavenly Father. And in 2 seconds of going into this dimension, I learned that everything I'd been teaching and most everything I believed about God was false in a beautiful way, but also a soul crushing way. Because now my whole foundation was just now taken away. My culture, my community, my everything. And I had to rebuild everything. Um, so for a long time, I couldn't even go to a church. I couldn't read scripture. I couldn't read anything because I saw the falseness in everything. Now I'm in a different place now where I can see the beauty in all things and I can find levels of truth and I can measure truth. I can measure truth out of like 100% in the quantum field. Like, is this more than 90% true? Or, like I measure everything, books, scriptures, what people tell me, everything. And that's kind of the work that I do. So people can't lie to me. They can't, if they're sick with cancer, it's the same thing. I test how much do they actually want to live? So I do that the same way that I test God or test information or revelation. But it was in that moment that everything changed for me. And I've had several experiences since then. Um, that I mean, it just shook me at my core.
Must have felt lost for a little while if they're
Yeah.
changed like
It,
that.
it took
If what
me
is real?
about 2 years to process. Yeah, 2 years to process. I didn't speak about it. When people say like they've seen God face to face, it's almost like, especially if you're a gospel teacher, it's like blasphemy. It's like, how dare you? Like people just don't believe it. And so I kept it to myself for a long time. Um, and I don't even talk about it in great detail very often, just with people I trust. But um, I would say what the world believes God to be is they probably only have maybe 10, 20%
Hmm.
of the truth. Yeah.
Some people believe that we are clones, that we're clone
Yeah.
alien clones or whatnot. Uh, I don't know
Well,
what we
what's your
are.
definition of an alien? Somebody who doesn't live in this world?
That generally, yeah,
Because
someone
God
that's
does
does he
God
what?
doesn't live in this world,
Well, I don't know. Yeah, I guess. Yeah, I mean, I guess that is part of some religions believe that we are made in His image or whatever.
right? Yeah.
But I mean, does he look anything like us? Does he? uh,
Yes. So I call them like they're celestial beings. They're exalted. Do you know what exaltation means?
no, no rotation.
Exaltation is like the end game. It's the ultimate goal.
Okay.
Okay. So if you think about something, exaltation is the ultimate goal in the end. Okay. God is a title, just like being a president of the United States is a title.
Hmm.
God, or what people know to be God, is really just an exalted human being to receive a title like that. So, like, for instance, like if I had a goal to one day become president of the United States, I have to work really hard. I have to get a lot of experience, go through a lot of hoops. I really have to be a practitioner in quite a bit of things, right? For me to have the qualifications to even qualify to have the title of president.
Hmm.
Okay. So that would be my exaltation. So the exaltation process to become president, right? Let's just say, use this term.
Okay.
But when you're a celestial being or in different worlds, or you've had a lot of experiences as a human, your exaltation is to one day become God, to have the title of God.
What do you believe? Is there more than one God?
Well, even the scriptures talk about multiple gods and how God's a jealous God. And if he was a jealous God of other gods and that you needed to worship only him, I mean, he's telling you information right there and then.
Okay. So there's multiple gods. They didn't start out as God because they had to work their way towards it.
People are hyper focused on this world. Like, they talk about peace on earth or, things like that. But in all reality, if we had universes of worlds that were completely in union, where everybody had the same abilities, same gifts, equally amplifying each other in complete union, that's where it's at. Not
Hmm.
just this one world.
And it seems to me that most religions are about morality, which is, subjective. But there's so much evil that comes out of it.
Yeah. Well, if anybody really knew their scriptures, they would know that originally Lucifer, who was Morning Star, was the one who brought religion to the world.
Okay.
Also, they don't know the true story of the supposed war in heaven, about how Lucifer even got down here. Did you know that originally the war in heaven was about Lucifer wanting to take away people's agency to choose and force them to be good?
No, I do not. Not a
Yeah.
not exactly a theologian or whatever they call that. I don't know too much about.
Well, it's interesting because even like Luciferians and Satan worshipers don't even know that information. Those were in hidden scriptures. So here we are painting out this picture like religion's the way, the God's way, which actually it's not. It was Lucifer, but you could also twist that story into different stories of all kinds of different theories from the galactic war, the Palladiums, the Amarians, all those stuff, same concept. They did not want to remove free will and choice. That is the most biggest universal law on all worlds, is the true definition of sin. When you manipulate or take away someone's free will to choose for themselves, that is the definition of sin. So let's just say we have two adults, completely consensual, and they love to make porn. Totally supported. Free will and choice.
Mhm.
Let's just say a man rapes a woman. That's a sin because there's removal of free will and choice. So that's where people need to get real big. And that's why I was talking about some of these catastrophic events taking place because people of influence removing free will and choice.
I just feel that because I'm not religious, like I said, if it's the right thing to do, it's the right thing to do. You know, it. I don't feel like I need somebody to scare me into thinking that I'm gonna go to hell or something's gonna happen to my family. I think you just try again. You see, this is tough to say because it's subjective. What I think is good, what I think is good, as long as I do what's good, it's the right thing. What I believe is good, it's the right thing. And I think some people feel that, you know, I don't like to label it, but say, atheism, whatever, that atheists are going to go to hell because they don't believe this, they don't believe that, and then they're not moral. But I know plenty of people that don't believe in God, and they do the right thing, and they are nice people, and they're accepting of religions because you don't 100% know you're right, you don't 100% know you're wrong, and that's just the way I feel. That's the way I explain to people who are religious. I just try
But
to do
see,
the right
that's a
thing.
trap. That's
How
a
do you mean?
trap right there.
What?
Because even if you're not religious, you're still talking about doing the right thing as
Hmm.
if there's a scale taking place, as if there's going to be a judgment.
I don't think I'm being
Even if
judged,
it's
though.
subconsciously,
Hmm.
huh?
I don't think I'm. Well,
It's a subconscious baggage. I can see it in your brain. And so a lot of people think this way. Like at the end of the day, we don't really know. But in the meantime, I'm going to be a good person and hopefully my deeds are shown well, right? It's kind of the same concept. But what they're not realizing is that this is part of the exaltation process. This is part of us becoming like our lineage. the lineage that we came from, which is a celestial line. If
Mm-hmm.
my dad is president, okay, and he's incredible, what do I aspire to be like when I
President?
grow up? Hell yeah. If
Yeah.
I'm ambitious, and if I'm not as ambitious, I might be a CEO or I might be a senator. Okay. Still pretty high up there though. Okay. So we're all going through the same process that God had to go through to get the title of God. So it's
Hmm.
not about at the end of the day, you're judged. It's at the end of the day, you're judging yourself on the knowledge and the experiences and how many more do you think you need? How many experiences would you have to be all knowing?
Infinite amount of experiences.
All of them.
Mm-hmm.
God is all knowing because of the experience, not because he's spying.
You're saying God, right?
Mhm.
But when you say it's like singular,
It's
you
not
only,
actually,
yeah, that's
but
why
yes.
I'm saying that. So you believe there are multiple gods, but are we supposed to be following one? Is there one designed for me? Is there one designed for you?
I
Or are they
think,
all?
I have seen, different things. And like I said, they're not all equal. Okay. You can have a title just like how our president is not equal to the president in Russia, right? They have different qualities, different laws, right? Now there are different tribes, like different scriptures all around the world talk about the tribes, how there's all these different tribes. Those tribes could have a different celestial law or leader or God. Absolutely, they could. Now that is very controversial. So without diving in deep and getting into the nuts and bolts of that, the answer is yes, but they're not all the same. They're not all equal. And what I would recommend is this is that people need to learn how to raise their spiritual antenna to receive information like that. Now, but let's just say that your God is different from mine. Let's just say hypothetically. Um, Whoever you're connecting to and whoever you're praying to is automatically going to be directed to what is correct, unless you make a diversion, unless you decide something else. Okay. Because you don't have the knowledge to know one way or another. You would have to gain knowledge and then make a conscious decision so that you're not being manipulated. Does that make sense? But that also makes more sense for why so many people have different gods, different religions. Look at how many we have around the world.
Could it be you're directed towards the God based on what you want?
No, based on what you're connected to in your lineage, like before
Okay.
this world.
So you're already connected
Yeah.
once you're born. Okay.
Yeah. And that's why we have all these different races, different languages, different cultures, and different religions. And here we are all arguing about how there's this one that's true than the other. And we've created genocide after genocide over arguing about it.
Hmm.
When really we're just here to have another human experience so that one day we could be all knowing.
So we're all wrong and we're all right.
And we're all right. Exactly. 100%. That's the kicker. People believe if I'm right, then you have to be wrong. We can't both be right. And that is the biggest lie of the world, I think.
I just know what I've seen and I'm trying to become God. So I need infinite knowledge. I need all that
Yes.
knowledge. Come on, bring it on.
Little God in training, God in
Yeah.
training. If you think about it too, though, if you really understand and go deep into this type of, I mean, I'm giving you a little seed, right, of information. This is actually a very big and beautiful understanding. But if you just think about this one thing, okay, that means that the situation that people are in, like let's just say a starving kid in Africa, they pre-selected that before they even got here.
And
That
why would you do that?
means because why wouldn't you want to be all knowing? If you're going to be a god one day,
Hmm.
you would have to be in every type of experience. Have to be a true practitioner. You're not going to just create yourself and then judge everybody else when you've never been there and done that. Like I said, if you're all knowing, how many experiences would you have to be all knowing? All of them. Okay. So if I'm a starving kid in Africa and I'm going to go through some trial and tribulations, I know that before I even come into this world. I'm okay with that. That means that this world is perfectly fucked up.
It's interesting.
Okay. It means that we don't need to sit here and think about how everything is so bad and so dark and, all of these things, right? Because really everybody's having a human experience. That homeless guy that's struggling over there could be way further along in this than you. This could be his last one that he needs.
I think I'm understanding a little more. So we lead many lives, all of us. Is that what you're saying?
Mhm.
On a way, and we just on a way to try to become the ultimate, the what was the word you used again? The end,
Exaltation.
the exalted one. Yeah.
Mhm.
Uh, so on a way to
And that
exaltation.
that and that exaltation might be different for everybody. Not everybody wants to be God. Not everybody wants that kind of title. It's just like everybody doesn't want to be president, right?
So you got several people that go through life. They want to become a IT engineer. That's
Yeah.
her.
And that might be like 10 lives.
That's 10 lives. Depends how much college you want to go through.
Exactly. But that's think about like elementary, junior, college, all these things. Those are all different experiences. So you're being shown a pattern, right? Of elevation, evolving, growing spiritually, mentally, physically, all these different levels. That's what it's all about, right? But we're taught like this is our first rodeo here and we're going to be judged. And there's just a lot of huge misconception really happening here.
It's kind of a relief to think of it that way
It
because it's
is.
not
That's what I'm
over
saying.
when this life is over. Yeah. Huh.
Because here's the thing. People should always be looking for upgrades in their belief system. Always. Just like if I'm a gamer, I'm going to upgrade, right? I want new
Mm-hmm.
gear, I want some new guns, I want all kinds of new stuff in my game, right? And our belief systems are very much that way. We have this, subconscious belief that God is somehow this floating wizard in the sky watching everything, watching our thoughts, spying on us. He knows what we're thinking, he knows what we did when nobody was looking, all these things, right? But yet he doesn't intervene when all of these kids are being sex trafficked. Like, is he not watching that shit?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they said
Here
God's
and
plan.
nobody, right? Nobody can explain that stuff. And they make these justifications in the religion. Okay. Now think about it this way is like, let's go back to the term of being president. If I'm president of a country, of the United States, doesn't matter how phenomenal I am, I have a delegation process, don't I?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I have governors, senators, mayors, I have EMTs, school systems, sheriff's department, FBI. I have all those things. So if there's a serious problem, I get alerted. I'm not hyper focused on Robin Ruffner in Colorado unless she either knows how to call me directly or knows how to connect with me, or somebody's praying on her behalf, or I'm being alerted by that delegation system. So people need to remove the thinking that God's all knowing because he's watching. Well, if he's watching, then why the hell is he letting that shit go on?
Mm-hmm.
The delegation systems sometimes are not reporting correctly. The delegation system is broken, just like how we're seeing it here in this world.
But
Okay.
those being trafficked pre-chose to be trafficked. Is it?
More than likely, yes. Now, remember when I talked about free will and agency?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So some of them are, yes, are having a human experience. Some of them are truly victims and being manipulated and their free will and choice. And that delegation system needs to be alerted to, what we would call the divine.
Okay.
But because people think God's all knowing and spying, they leave out the specifics. They're like, oh, you know what I need. You know what to do with all those kids that are being molested. That's very
Mm-hmm.
generalized. But if I was like, hey, this child at this age, this is his name, this is his location, I need this and this and this to take place. That's very specific. And that's where people are missing because of this one piece of information, assuming that God knows everything instead of having all knowing of knowledge. He's spying, so you don't have to give him the details.
That
They
makes
can't, like,
sense.
if I call the FBI and I say, hey, I think there's a terrorist in the United States, you guys need to do something. They're not going to go, okay, thank you very much. They're going to go, okay, do you know
Right.
his name, his location? Do you know what he looks like? Do you know where we should start? Anything, right? Do you see the
Hmm.
difference?
All right. So those out there praying better get specific.
Oh man, you're going to see power in specifics. That's where
Wow.
power is. Even
So,
in your meditation, like even if you don't believe in God, totally fine, okay?
mm,
But there are supernatural things. There is the quantum field. There are, you have lineage, you have a dead grandmother, you have all these things that are connected to you. And you need to start looking at them as they're in a collaboration with you. So the
mhm.
more specific you can be with that energy, your thought, your intentions, your journal, everything, that's where power is.
Do you believe in multi dimensions? Like,
Yeah.
and dimensions running alongside of us?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I've had very profound personal experiences with that. And interesting enough, when I was talking about that earthquake too in Utah that I see coming, there's also something about there's a lot of earthquakes that happen right after that too. And there's something about those earthquakes taking place where some of those dimensions collide.
You don't see a time when this is going to happen, right? You just know it's going to happen.
I just see certain dominoes first. For instance, if there's going to be like any type of shenanigans with the election this year, like where we're not going to have an election or that we're not going to have an inauguration or anything like that, I could see it happening this fall. If it doesn't, then it just depends on certain events.
But it's avoidable or no?
I mean,
It
it could
just
be avoidable,
depends.
yeah. Well, remember the incredible things that will also take place. If you ever interviewed people that have been in catastrophic like events like Katrina or, you know, major earthquakes or something like that, they will tell you that it strengthened their family and their beliefs, their hope, their faith in themselves and in their family members more than ever. They've never been as close as they were in those moments. That's profound.
I've always wondered about that. I was like, I don't know if I ever want to go through something that's going to make me like my family. My family's nuts. Uh, but yeah, it's and sometimes I wonder how this person could forgive somebody. Like they say they murdered your kid or something. Okay, I forgive them. How do people get to that point that they can actually forgive somebody for that? Is it for their
You
own
know,
personal health?
it depends, and that's a case by case thing, but I'll give you something smaller to process. How I justified staying with my husband for a long time, knowing he had secret lives. I supported him and I loved him unconditionally. I loved on his darkness. Okay. And the way that I did that was when he would lie to me, I would say, have I ever lied to myself? I would say this, have I ever lied? And I'd say, yes, I have. I say, okay, well, why did I lie? Because I was scared. So when somebody can really look how this can happen, how can somebody get here? How can someone lose their shit and kill someone? How could somebody be in such a mental state where they are in that place, whatever that circumstance is? And if they dig deep, they can find a moment in time where that could have happened to them. I've lost my shit. I could have accidentally punched someone and then they fell and hit their head and I murdered them. You know what I mean? Like we can all look at circumstances of have I ever been angry enough? Have I ever stolen something? Have I ever, anywhere? And then what really happens is what we're trying to think is that their sin or their anger or their whatever is worse than ours. And it's really not. They just were a little bit more pushed in that moment of time.
Uh, I mean, I could forgive people for some things, but I don't know if it came to my kid, man. It just, I couldn't bring myself to understand why they did that. I wouldn't care,
Yeah.
you know.
I think thinking that you would have to forgive is also a misconception. You don't need to. You don't need to. But understanding how humans can do such things or why we came here in the first place is where you get clarity and where you get peace from something like that. It's not about the forgiveness.
If I asked you what route I would need to take uh to advance my career or have the best career I could, would you be able to see that?
Yes.
So is that kind of like the domino thing?
No. So like for instance, if somebody booked a call with me, a client
Mm-hmm.
that I've never spoken to, they're not allowed to leave a reference or a message or anything of why they booked the call. I just get their
Mm-hmm.
name and their phone number. I call them. They're not allowed to tell me one thing. All I
Mm-hmm.
say is, do I have your permission? And tell me your full name. Once they tell me their full name, I can tap in. I can see what's going on in their brain. I can see what's keeping them from their potential. If they're sick, why they're sick, what we can do about it. How long has this been going on? What's their subconscious thought and default system? What is this connected to? When did this start? What can I do about it? So I can do that for a corporation. I can do that for an individual. I can do that for a family. I can do that for a government. It doesn't matter. But everything that I'm going to say to you is never going to be something that's going to make you scared. It's going to be powerful. It's going to be truthful. It's going to give you peace. And you're going to have a lot of different solutions of what things that we can do. Sometimes it's just some brain programming you might need. But
Yeah,
knowing what your default is a big deal.
I'd be worried to let somebody in my head. Honestly.
Oh, everybody worries. I love
Yeah.
on everybody's, like I said with my husband, I love on darkness. People can tell me things that they haven't told their best friend in 67 years. I will find whatever is beautiful. I mean, I've worked with people who wanted to be serial killers and trying to find out how their mind got there and what we can do about it is way more productive than hating on something and shoving it in a hole and allowing that deep dark thought to be leveraged against you by yourself. Everybody has that thought like if anybody knew what I was thinking, if anybody knew what I really did. Everybody thinks that way. And men specifically are worse. They have it so bad. They think that so much that something is deep and dark and wrong with them. And if anybody really knew, and it's just not true. It's not true.
Yeah, men are tend to be more closed off. Yeah, that's true.
But men can have vile thoughts. They can have violent thoughts. They can have very sexual thoughts. And that is 100% normal. And the fact that nobody talks about it. So then the man has that thought and they're like, oh my God, that was horrible. What the hell was I thinking?
Yeah, intrusive thoughts. Yeah.
Right. And some of it's not even theirs. And so it comes in and then they start to judge themselves. And then they're like, oh my gosh, I could never tell anybody about that. And then it leverages against them in themselves. And then they think God's spying on them. So God knows somehow, some way,
Mm-hmm.
you know,
Wow. Yeah. Oh, you're right.
that's a lot
Yeah.
of baggage, right? Like think about all the baggage that everybody's carrying all the time. And if we could just love on each other and be soft landings and, you know, yeah, it's just
Yeah.
crazy. I have those experiences every day with my clients and I just free them up. I'm a resetter.
Hmm. Yeah. I wonder, like, some people think like this. You have like you think you have scary thoughts too. Let me go there. Like
Yeah.
something happened to your kid, and you're worrying all day now. I had that. Oh my God, is that gonna happen now? Or, they're gonna get to an accident or like Like it freaks me out sometimes. Like I'm like, or am I just?
Okay, well, let me give you a tool that you can do
Mhm.
that will help with that, okay? Right, because your listeners are having the same problem. Okay, we all are, especially parents. I'm a mother of five and I've had foster kids and stuff too. So I'll give you a personal experience. Anytime I get anxious or I have a thought like that, a fear, what I do is I say cancel, cancel, cancel 3 times. And then I call power to what I need and want to take place. Now, you can do that with prayer. You can call God, you can call your spirit guides, or you can just use your own power. Okay, so if you're not religious, then you would just say, my child is protected. No physical harm can come to her physical body. She is mentally, physically, sexually, financially, spiritually, on all levels, shielded from all harm, all weapons. Nothing can penetrate her body. No car accidents, no nothing. All of her organs are working perfectly and healthy and optimized. Her brain is smart. She is quick witted. She's a good driver. I bless her that she will know how to make a fast decision, that she will be protected. If something is going to happen, she will know and she will remove herself. You see what I mean? See the difference?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because you having intrusive thoughts and having anxiety and then just thinking, oh, I just need to stop it, that's not going to do anything. It makes you feel powerlessness. And that's the worst feeling that you're just leaving it out to chance. Okay. But let me give you a personal experience. Okay. About a year ago, my oldest son was going downtown to go visit somebody, which was a known like drug building. But he went to go see a family member there. And I had a weird feeling. I didn't even know he was going down there, but I just had a weird feeling that morning, just like we were talking about. I was just anxious about my kids. So I said very specific things. No physical harm could come to their physical bodies. And for my son, I said nothing could penetrate his physical body. I got a call a couple hours later. There was an altercation. Some guys showed up in a stolen Raptor truck, which is a big truck. Saw my son walking up the alley and purposely went and hit him and pinned him against a big commercial dumpster.
Oh, he hit him with the truck. Oh, wow.
They hit him with the truck as a pedestrian. He was walking and they saw him and they purposely sought him out and hit him and pinned him against a commercial dumpster, crushed the dumpster.
Shit.
Then afterwards, nobody really knows what happened. I'll tell that side in a second. He's now on the other side. He drops to his knees. He coughs some blood. He's rushed to the ER. I get down there and my son, when he dropped to his knees, he said he looked at God and he says, tell my mom thank you. And he didn't know why. I get to the ER, the doctor comes in and she's looking at the MRI and she said, I got to show you something. This doesn't make any sense. You can see he has contusions in his lungs. His lungs were crushed, but there's not a mark on his body. He has no broken ribs. There's no way that could happen. Then the security, because now this is attempted vehicular manslaughter. So there was an investigation. The detective got footage in the alley and said, "Me and my team have watched this video 35 times or more. You see the truck hit him, you see him get pinned, and then all of a sudden there's a little glitch in the video where he's now on the side of the dumpster, and nobody can see how it happens." He's like, "I just can't explain it."
That's wild.
I have a
I,
lot of stories like that,
I love
and so
hearing
I'm
this stuff.
telling you,
This is
it's it's that simple because I
wow.
send power to it. And you do it enough. You just need one thing to work, and then you're going to have a little bit of belief, a little bit of hope.
Shit. Every time I have one of those thoughts, I'm going to have to go through that whole protection.
Just do it.
But
Absolutely.
yeah.
It's the
Yeah.
same thing for your viewers that have anxiety. Like you're in a car and you're like, oh my God, I'm driving so fast. What if I get into an accident? Same thing. Cancel, cancel, cancel. I'm safe. This
I'm
car
slow
is
down.
safe. I'm shielded from harm. Yeah.
Yeah.
For one, okay, here's a couple things. Scientifically, your brain's going to calm down. You're creating chemicals in the brain. You are reprogramming the brain. You're also setting an intention in the quantum field. And if you do believe in supernatural things, you're also calling power to that for supernatural things to do exactly what you're commanding. It's just
Hmm.
a win win.
Yeah. I mean, it can't hurt. Yeah. Well, I will be doing that. That's for sure.
It's just like when someone says, oh, I have a friend and she's really struggling, I just feel so bad for her. When people say that to me, I'm like, well, stop. Stop feeling bad for them because you're sending them a really weak frequency. You're almost like creating that identity for them. Instead, send them power. Send them power. Instead of like, oh God, please help them. That's like such a weak ass thing to say for someone.
Hmm.
Instead, I'm going to call power to them that they're going to be blessed financially. Their bodies are going to be blessed. They're going to be strong. They're going to overcome this. They're going to hate this so much that they're never going to go through this again. See, you're in a big difference.
Hmm.
Send power to it.
Oh, I will. It's funny you said she because I do have two girls. So.
And if you have a fear about like your kids, that's why I have all the skill sets that I have. Like, that's why I'm a sniper. That's why I am a gun instructor. That's why all these things, because if I had anxiety or fear, I would just go train for it. For the things I saw in the future, I just went and trained for it. So I'm as prepared as one can be, right?
Mhm.
But that's what gives you peace. So if you have a fear, like what if your daughter gets assaulted, right? Or something like that? Well, then why don't you take her to some badass Krav Maga class for a month?
Hmm.
Why don't you get her some gun training or whatever it is?
Well, luckily, my oldest, I have a 24-year-old and a 4-year-old. Luckily, my oldest is dating a martial arts instructor now, so I'm not too I'm not too worried about it.
Nice. It's
Yeah.
perfect.
And he's
Yeah.
a super nice guy too. Yeah.
Yeah. But like anybody, right? We all have those little fears, and it's like, well, what can we do about it?
What's the best feedback you've ever received from somebody? Like
What's the
you
what?
give someone a reading, and maybe like a few days later or a few years they come back and say, "Oh my God, you changed my life."
I don't just do readings, so I have the gift of healing. So
Hmm.
whatever I see in you, I can heal it in you. I mean, I do change people's lives, and I'm very connected to them for the rest of my life. I could be at dinner with my family and have a feeling like, oh my gosh, Michael's about to kill himself. What the hell's going on? And I haven't talked to him in 10 years. And I'll call him up and I'm like, what's going on with you? And he's like, I can't believe you just called me. I was just about thinking about killing myself. The connection that I have with people, and knowing them on the deepest level than probably any other human being at that point, like what people would say about me.
Is that draining? Being connected to so many
No,
people.
it's beautiful. But I also would say that because I have a lot of training, I can test things and I know like if I'm taking on someone else's energy or, something like that. And that happened in the early years. But if you ever see like an energy worker or a psychic and stuff saying that, then that means they're not as trained as they should be. Um, but that's really where that comes from. They don't know what to do with that besides
Okay.
clear it. But there's a lot of other things you could be doing.
So you have a website. You do offer readings and healings at various levels that your clients can sign up for. Can you describe the different types of readings and healings you offer?
I at this point, so I worked in the private sector for a long time. I'm only doing like governments and corporations. I still do corporations. So I can heal companies, I can shift departments, I can do anything like that. I do forensic energetic audits on companies. That's amazing because I get to work on thousands of people sometimes. I'm working on a case for the Supreme Court, like a murder case that's going to be retried in Supreme Court, which is actually really awesome. So I do stuff like that and I can see what the other side is planning and thinking and what they'll settle for and things like that. But then when it comes to an individual, any category, mentally, physically, spiritually, sexually, financially, I can correct it all. So I just take a look. So I always start with a quick 15-minute like reading and tell them what I see in 3 seconds. And then we can connect and see if it's a good fit for either one of us. But where I really like to do is I need to teach people how to do it themselves. So they never need somebody like me again. They don't need a guru and they don't need a church and they don't need a motivational speaker anymore. It's them. They're solid. I teach them how to open up their spiritual gifts, how to develop them, how to use them, how to test for truth, and create that spiritual signal that they need.
That's an
It's like a
amazing Robyn.
superpower.
Yeah. I want that power. That's at amazingrobyn.com. That's ROBYN. I would advise anybody who's thinking about getting a reading or learning how or being healed to see you, because this is I'm very comfortable with you. You're such an easy person to talk to.
Thank
You
you.
seem to have a beautiful spirit. And I loved your answers. So I'm worried about what you're going to see. I love your darkness. Okay. All right, then.
Yes, absolutely.
I really appreciate you coming on. I have a friend who doesn't believe in the psychic stuff. He says, he's got to see it to believe it, which I understand. That's perfectly
that.
perfectly legit. Maybe one day I can get him on and you could change his mind.
Yeah. Yeah. I kind of appreciate like the atheists, the non-believers of all things, because they don't have the baggage, to be honest. The
Mhm.
people who are super religious and like really tied to their culture and their religious beliefs tend to be harder. They take longer because their brain is so programmed to think a certain type of way. But people who are non-believers, I have the best results with them because their mind they want to know. They really do.
This is true.
Versus somebody who thinks they already know. So I love it. Bring it.